Hi, guys, and welcome to an unexpected episode of your favorite podcast, Unresolved Textual Tension. It's me, your host, Maria, and today with me, I have a dynamic duo, Will and Elin.
Yes, and we here at Unresolved Textual Tension are pushing the boundaries of technology. We used AI to make it seem like I was in the same place with Ellen in Sweden. And now we have pushed it further. We are making it so that she is a digital immigrant here. So our digital tourist. And so it's holographic. It's very new. We can't change the perspective of the camera or it will tear. But we brought her here because this is maybe the second time on the channel that we are sincerely looking at one of the works of George R.R. Martin, but this time an actual good TV version of it, which is A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. This is
Who?
This is a little bit different because the series hasn't actually ended by the time we're doing this, so we're not necessarily going to compare it completely to the books. Ellen has read the books. I read one of them, and Maria has read none. As I put it, she'll bring the enthusiasm, though, which is what Maria is really good at. But we just thought it'd be fun because the three of us are really enjoying the series, so we just wanted to talk it out.
Yeah, this is actually my fault. I did this because I was talking to Will and I told him how much I loved it and I told him he had to watch it. And Will does very little in his life without going, can we make content out of this? and then he was like, do you want to do like recordings after the episodes come out? And I was like, absolutely. And you have to understand, for the most part, I haven't taken on a lot of extra things with the podcast. Katie has done Katie's Fiction Corner. She does the critique streams with Will. Will does a fuck ton of extra stuff. There's, because I knew my schedule and stuff like that, I have not taken on as much extra stuff. But let me tell you, I fucking jumped at the chance. Number one, my Mondays are kind of slow. So.
No, we jealously guard Maria's weekdays as non-content time for 4 years. It's been 4 years, and I've always been like, nope, she's doing what she's doing. And then even like she only does she does like 3 weekends, and then she has to have a fourth one for her husband now, which I think is
how dare
feminist of her. Putting a man before her intellectual. But yes, no, and Maria is just adoring this show.
Yeah.
So this is her.
And I have been dying because no one in my life has watched it outside of my husband, who has enjoyed it with me, but is not the level I am as far as what and how I'd like to talk about it and that stuff. Like, no one.
Intellectual capacity.
Yeah, I have literally been dying for someone to watch this so I can talk about it. And I honestly have not been this excited about a TV thing since Shogun. Like, this is...
Yeah, me too. This is I watched... That's not true. I watched... what was the murder one? Mindhunter, which was very good, but this is exciting. Yeah. Like Maria said, this is like, oh, my two favorites are here this week, and we're just gonna chill. And like I really like that. So just very quickly for people who don't know, do you want to do the synopsis?
Yeah.
Or should we give it
premise.
No, premise.
Okay, so the premise for A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. These are 3 short stories about Dunk and Egg that take place. Roughly, I think it's 70 or 80 years before the events of A Song in Ice and Fire. So these two main characters are both...
a little bit closer to her.
She's here. I'll move this way. Actually.
Just a unscotch.
This is what happens with feminism. You're displaced first in the workplace, and then physically, you have to give up space to women.
Yeah.
Is this
stop
better?
having enough space for your balls.
Because literally, even though it's farther away from him,
God.
his level is still great.
I'm Hispanic.
He's so loud.
Yes. Listen,
Yes.
At some point, Elin, we're going to be in a restaurant, and I'm going to be talking above the level of everyone in that restaurant, and someone is going to look at me and be like, Maria, calm down. So I get it. That's me.
I'm more the person who makes everyone lean in and go, sorry? Sorry, what was that? Sorry?
Me and Maria have a Mediterranean temperament.
We've got the...
All right, keep going.
Yes.
Okay, 80 years before the events of The Song in Ice and Fire, the main characters, Dunk and Egg, are, if you have read the books from A Song of Ice and Fire, they are well-known historical figures that you will recognize. Dunk is famous as Sir Duncan the Tall,
Well-
a former Knight of the Kingsguard.
We don't want to give away too many spoilers in case Maria doesn't know
Okay.
them yet.
And Egg is Aegon Targaryen.
Yeah. Oh,
Yes.
Yeah.
They're basically Dunk starts the story bearing his old knight. He was a squire too. He is poor, but he has a lot of heart. He wants to win this competition. And Egg is this adorable little alien-looking creature who's like, "You suck, but I want a squire for you." And thus the story begins.
it is if you've ever thought, wow, I want a slice of life buddy cop story set in a medieval setting, this is it. This is that story for you, where you've got the odd duck pairing of a really, really tall, poor knight with a very, very small Bebito guy, and their personalities. It is. I didn't know I needed this in my life, guys.
You know what it is? We talked about this a little bit, but it's very slice of life.
Yes.
And so you said some people complained about it being slow, and I kind of get that, but at the same time, what is life if not to enjoy the slow moments?
Yeah, and this actually encapsulates one of my favorite duos, which is kind of like an old tutor type and a young, naive protege with great banter between them. And there is nothing like, oh, maybe she's gonna age into puberty and suddenly there's gonna be a romance.
Yes.
Because that is always a danger
And it's
if it's a man and a woman.
Terrifying.
Oh, that's so funny.
I'm
Yeah.
with Elin. That is literally my
Oh.
nightmare. I hate
That's so
I
funny.
hate when I have a good like older brother or like father figure, mentor figure, or even just mentor mentee, and then all of a sudden it's like, but what if like they boned once she hit puberty? Like, get the
Yeah.
fuck out.
Yeah, it's like you have this beautiful relationship and you have this great dynamic and you're having so much fun with your characters, and suddenly they're like, oh, guess what? Romance plot. And you're like, no, ew, that is so inappropriate. Stop.
Yeah, no, that's
So-
there was a point where I was like, wouldn't this be kind of interesting if Egg was female? And then I was like, nah, they're just two
No,
bros.
they're
No, yeah.
just two bros.
And that's the
Um,
beauty of it.
yes.
Yeah, it is. And it's not a partnership of like Dunk is not like his father figure and Aegon is not the son figure. It's more like big brother, little brother, but
Yeah.
also master servant,
Yep.
where the servant just happens to be a prince of the realm, which is just extra funny.
Yeah, it's I you're correct. It is because the ways that Aegon or Egg will kind of like needle at Dunk at times are really funny and like little brother coded.
And then
Mhm.
also the ways in which Dunk like reprimands Egg, that like I'll give you a hiding, gives that like like it feels like grumpy old poor person, and it just the
Mhm.
dynamic between them is just excellent.
Mhm.
And
But he will say things really harshly, and the second after, you can sort of
You can
see
see in his
him
mind going,
catching up in his brain and going, "Oh, maybe that was
Yeah.
a little
"Here,
much."
I'll
And
teach
he'll
him how to
do-
sew."
And he'll do or indicate something sweet, and you're like, "Oh, you're just reenacting how the world has taught you to act, Bobby."
but you're also like the goodest boy that ever lived.
Mhm.
So at this point, there's been 4 episodes that have come out. So, and we have watched all 4 of them. And going forward, we will be doing this the Mondays after they come out. So we will.
There's only 2 left.
What?
Yeah, this is gonna be just a short season. It seems like, from what I understand.
I'm so
They're
angry.
just, they're just covering the first season. I know. I was like,
I
I was like, they're moving through this a little fast to be doing one short story a season. And,
I am
yeah.
devastated. I thought we had like
Devastated.
10 episodes and we had 6 more weeks of,
Me too.
oh my God, this is like the worst thing that has ever happened to me.
Maybe we'll either do one catch up at the end or we'll do one next week.
Yeah.
Either way, and this may or may not be the episode for this week. It depends on how much I want to edit.
It's so funny because since I know the story so well, it's been a couple of years since I read it, but I've read the Dunk and Egg novels about 3 times. So in my mind entirely, my internal clock has been sort of ticking down. Like I know how much of the
Mhm.
intrigue is left to come in this first novel. So I'm like, okay, how long is this season gonna be again? How many episodes? How are we
Yeah,
gonna
me
fill the
too.
time?
I'm familiar with the story, even though I didn't read the first two. And also, one thing we'll talk about is I actually do wish they would expand a little bit past the scope of the short story. I think there's like this latest episode, which was a bit of a let's get the gang together to do not a heist in this case, but like Seven Samurai style.
Mhm.
I wish I'd actually been a longer episode because I think that would have actually been interesting to see more of his interactions with the different knights and like what knighthood means because that's one of the things that the show does so well is I'm gonna rant about a Game of Thrones at some point. So let's. So I'll talk about what the show does so well in a moment.
Yes,
Because otherwise, that's gonna be a lot of this.
it will be.
For those who are coming to this new, I have good taste, and I despise the Game of Thrones television series, despite loving the books.
Yes, it is. It was long a sticking point in mine and Katie's and Will's friendship, where Katie and I enjoyed the show, and I still, because as someone who is who's never read the books, I still think there are parts of the show that
No.
were good, and Will is just like, nah. Baby bathwater, the whole thing, throw it out. I have the unfortunate position of being meant like many of the others where the Game of Thrones finals, like season 7, I was like, eh. And then season 8 came out and I was like, God damn it. Because it's just like there's so much good setup for
It
stuff.
retroactively screws up the whole
Yeah,
series.
'cause
Nobody
there's-
wants to watch it because at the end you're gonna get to a terrible ending.
Yeah, and there's so much good setup. And I actually am quite happy because I think a little bit what you're talking about, like kind of expanding the scope past the stories a little bit and like making longer episodes as needed. It kind of, I'm a little bit gun shy about that conceptually because I think of stories like Stranger Things where once they started making longer episodes or even not like a different show where they started making longer episodes randomly, Ted Lasso in the last season, and like the quality dropped. Like there's just something about being forced to work in a tight scope and a tight time limit that I think forces people to really carve out the good. And I think the minute you start giving people some rope to hang themselves with, they hang themselves. I just think of a lot of the later I mean, I could go on a rant about Stranger Things.
Yes.
But I'm waiting for Friendly Space Ninja to come out with his like 3-hour episode of or video about
Takedown.
Yeah, and so I'm actually really pleased, and I not knowing anything about the rest of the actual series that it's based on, I find it just so perfectly paced. Like this is when people are like. When I mentioned that, like, I kind of like shit that's kind of that other people think is boring and slow, like Spinning Silver for a lot of people. Oh, the show hits the sweet spot. And to kind of start us off and get the ball rolling, a huge criticism that was laying at the feet of the first episode that you've kind of touched on, Will, is that people said nothing happened. I literally read a review where someone was like, and I'm going to give you the plot kind of season 1 a little bit and then how this person distilled it. You have our main character, Dunk, who has been a squire for all of his life to this one knight, Sir Arlen. And Sir Arlen dies. His father figure, dead. And he buries him beneath a tree. They are hedge knights, or Arlen was a hedge knight, which is a knight that does not have loyalty to any particular house. They are a traveling knight for hire. They sleep under trees and in hedges, thus the name. And Dunk has to reckon with his life. What is he going to do? He's got Arlen's sword, Arlen's armor, the 3 horses they had, and does he sell the horses, live like a king for a while, or does he attempt to take on this lifestyle for himself, become a knight of the realm in and of himself? And the show immediately undercuts, and you talked about this, Will, so I'd like you to talk about this point. The show immediately undercuts your expectation in this opening scene. Will, take it away.
Okay, so there's a moment where Dunk he's holding his sword and he's like, or I could go become a champion of Ashford, and the camera starts zooming in on him, and they have the Game of Thrones, the theme pulling in, and then it hard cuts to some toilet humor. There's a lot of toilet humor in this show, and that's the one thing I do not like.
Yes.
And it's supposed to obviously be like, this is this isn't your dad's Game of Thrones. This is going to be not more irreverent. But what really works about it is that, and this speaks to what Martin does in his stories and what the show and what Game of Thrones never was able to do in its one, which is that Martin is not. I skipped a step because later there's a part where Dunk in this last episode will make a very impassioned plea for people to do, for knights to do, be honorable and do the right thing, and then you hear the Game of Thrones da 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 in the background, and so by that point the show is like, we have earned this moment now that we have kind of looked at knighthood and looked at what the realities of it are and like what being poor is and how difficult that is, and we're now like, but now we have earned this moment of let's do real honor.
And an additional thing we have done is that we have actually built up Dunk as a person who believes in the knight's vows, because they swear to defend the poor and the vulnerable and to act nobly, and a lot of knights in the A Song of Ice and Fire universe just completely disregard this. They're very self-interested, and they serve for money. They're more sellswords than knights. Whereas Dunk, he said, like, my master wasn't much of a renowned knight, but he taught me what was important, and I'm gonna keep living by his code. And in getting to know Dunk until this 4th episode, we have kind of joined the group that feel like he is deserving of this moment where he calls others to be noble and to stand up for what's right and to enforce the knightly vows.
The show puts in the work to make that moment hit in an epic way. By the way, let me know if our audio levels, I changed up the gain a little bit, so Ellen will probably be picked up more, but let me know if I'm too loud.
No, you're fine. And the other thing that, because it really is, these two moments really are paired specifically because of the theme music. But the other thing that I find, because like I'm not much for a potty humor, that's the one thing about the show is sometimes it can be a little gross. And I don't like it. I'm not a gross humor person myself, but there is an earnestness in how this is portrayed, because he literally takes a very, very anxious shit. Like, that's the cut. The thing is, I have to describe it this way because he decides he's going to be a knight. He's going to go to this tourney by himself that he's never done, and he then is scared shitless. Like, it is this moment of he looks into the distance, and then immediately, and it's not the first time we see that Dunk's inner, it won't be the last time we see that Dunk's inner anxiety is going to reflect in how he, like, there's a scene later where he is super anxious all morning and just keeps throwing up because he thinks something is going to happen. And so there's the idea, what it reminds me of, as much as I don't like, I wish they didn't actually cut to it like this. Like, I'm fine with it happening.
Yes.
Like, I'm fine with it being there. Like, if we like know it happened, I just hate the way they do it. Like, it's too gross. They needed to dial it back. But I like the idea of him being, you know, someone with an anxious stomach. Like, he is such a normal, like, he's just such a normal fucking dude that he's like, I'm gonna do this, and then immediately has to, because like I've been in that position where I'm like, yeah, absolutely, and then terrified, and my ass has to run to the bathroom. Now, again, they could have cut away artfully. There would have been other ways they could have filmed it.
A little less spurting, perhaps.
Yes. Again, a
little less velocity.
The way they filmed it was unnecessary, but the action itself, especially at the build-up, because it's almost like him thinking of himself as this grand knight, the music from Game of Thrones playing in the back, and then immediately anxious stomach.
Like, it should cut to him galloping down the road on his horse. Like, that is the expected cut, and instead there's some anyway, okay, you've made your defense of it, but I still don't like it in the show.
Yeah, I think it also harkens back to Martin, who just loves undercutting nobility and great ideals and impactful moments with the very, what is the irony of life?
Yes.
Like how life is often, for example, how sex is often not at all as it is in the films, but it's rather fumbly, and someone might hit someone in the face by accident, and, you know, something might fall onto the floor and
just
stuff like that. Yeah.
And you're so right, Elin, because that stuff like that happens the entire time. There's a serious scene in episode 4 where like characters are discussing how Dunk is going to have to go to trial for something. And then this one guy is under the table trying to reach a nut that fell under it. And it's just like this serious ass conversation for the people above the table. Life or fucking death is happening. And this entire show has that sense of humor and is playing with that. And Will has talked about it before. And again, I haven't read the books, but apparently that is something that is very much within the books. And I would say, while sometimes is in the TV show, the Game of Thrones TV show, is just not like, here it is present. This show is funny, it is smart, and it is also, it never lets you or the scene take itself too seriously while still being very emotionally impactful, which works really well.
Let's not forget Alice Three Fingers and the philosophical bearings of her name and what she did for her profession, for those who have watched the show. Yeah.
Anything else, or can I continue with the first episode?
You may continue.
Okay. And so then he has to, he goes off to Ashford, and he's going to try, or he's heading to Ashford. He stops at an inn. While at the inn, there is a very, very light blonde / white haired dude in this inn. It's one of the only people in the inn, and the guy's like, I dreamt about you. I don't like you. Go away. And he's like, oh, I'm going to go get my horse stabled. And when he goes to the stable, there's a guy in the stable, and he's like, are you the stable boy? And the kid's like, I can take care of your horse. And it's this weird looking bald headed kid. And the kid's like, you go into the tourney? Can I come with you? I'll be your squire. And he's like, who the fuck are you? No, I'm not taking, you live here. I'm not just taking a random child with me. Take care of my horses or I'm going to smack you around. And this is our second character, Egg. Egg is a kid just trying to get to a tourney. He wants to go, and he wants to be a squire at all costs. And our boy Dunk leaves. He heads to the tourney. He gets to the tourney, and he's like trying to enter the list. And the guy's like, so you weren't knighted in front of anyone, so I need someone to vouch that your master existed, because unfortunately Dunk's master was such a low-level guy that nobody remembers him, and you need to have some, because nobody witnessed it and he's not here himself, he needs to get vouched for. So the first episode is him kind of trying to find someone to vouch for him. And then the random little...
Who remembers his master, Arlen of White Tree, despite the fact that he fought with a bunch of people? Penny Tree. Nobody actually really remembers.
And he served a ton of different knights and royal families and did a lot of good work. And so there's very much this idea of how inconsequential. So not only does Dunk feel inconsequential, because there's very much the idea that he wasn't actually knighted. Like we've not been shown where Arlen on his deathbed knighted him. And so you, the viewer, are like, Dunk, did you do this? There's actually one of the funniest scenes in the first episode that absolutely has some of what Elin was just talking about. The guy who's in charge of who enters the lists, which is to enter the tourney, is like, you were knighted, right? You were, because if you weren't, there's this terrible, and he describes this terrible torture device that will be used on people who are impersonating a knight. And then Dunk's like, and the guy's like, he literally hawks a disgusting loogie. This guy spits all the time, and I hate it so much.
It's great.
It's great because, again, it does that thing where a serious situation is happening, and then this guy's just grossly spitting, so it's undercutting the seriousness of it. And then he's like, no, I'm just fucking with you. We won't. That's insane. We wouldn't do that. Just find someone who's like, yeah, I knew his master, and you'll be good. As long as they can vouch for your master, you're fine. And it's because, like, that's the Game of Thrones moment. If you're breaking your oath, we will put you on this thing that'll split you up the ass. You know, like, that's the Game of Thrones moment. And then the show looks at you and is like, nah, guys.
I think the master of games, this guy, also makes the point that, like, look, usually this would be fine. No peasant is riding in on 3 horses pretending to be a knight, like, economically. But this is a game where we want, like, real knights
Yeah.
here, so I gotta play it.
And there's a
the guy they
prince.
got to play him, to cast him, whoever casted him, he's great because he like is a role that's supposed to be just kind of funny, but he actually really brings humanity to certain small moments of like, okay, look, find somebody, or later on he's like, I get it, this sucks, but you gotta do it. Like those small little moments really help the show feel alive. And we'll get to talk more about casting when it comes to the Laughing Storm.
Yes,
Also pretty
which
brilliant.
we're heading to very quickly because our boy also eggs here. He came. He rode in a goat carriage, and he's like, "Hi, I'd like to be your
Lamb.
squire, and work with you." And Dunk's like, I mean, you don't know anyone else here, so I guess I'll let you be my squire because you're a literal fucking child in this tourney town. But Dunk just keeps traveling to different knights, trying to see if any, or lords, to see if any of them remember. None of them do, and it's this really disheartening scene. And he ends up kind of befriending this one kid who is the squire of, I'm blanking on his house name, but this shitty knight. And I'm just gonna call him Shitty Knight. He's a
The
dick.
Fossaways.
The Fossaways, the apple bitches. And
The red apple fossilways.
the red apple Fossaways. And like the Fossaway Knight guy, he's a fucking dick. He's a real shithead. He's like beating up his cousin who is his squire. And Dunk like looks at it too long. But him and the squire end up becoming friends. And the squire's like, let's go to the Baratheon tent. And our boy Dunk ends up having dinner at Lionel Baratheon, also known as the Laughing Storm, at his tent. And it is an interesting evening. And again, this is a couple of the moments where the show looks at you and says, you're expecting Game of Thrones. And then the show, and the thing that I think is the important thing is earnestness. There's this point where Lionel is like, who the fuck are you? Why are you in my tent? I don't know who you are. Are you looking for help? Or are we fighting? Like, there's only two reasons for you to be here. Why the fuck? And you can tell there's this very much this idea of people being used in a way or having beef. And Dunk is literally just eating a piece of bread, and he was like,
Yeah.
I just came for dinner. And he's so earnest and honest that Lionel's like, oh shit, that's another reason somebody could want to be here. They could just genuinely fucking want to eat. Fair the fuck enough. And immediately he puts his earnestness defangs Lionel Baratheon, who is one of the best parts of this show.
He's so great. They have an erotic dance.
They do.
Did you notice Lionel Baratheon's special power, though?
No, what's his special
He has a special power that you pay attention to. He's the only character who has control of slow-mo. In the dance, there's slow-mo. Later on, when they're doing the tug-of-war, there's slow-mo while Lionel Baratheon's there. And then during the knighting, there's also slow-mo again. He's the only character who can invoke slow-mo.
Oh my god, that's hysterical. And let me tell you, that actor has such an imp smile. Ooh, I fucking get down.
I have to say it's a great casting, and the only thing I would really, take a little he's a perfect casting. He is the Laughing Storm. He embodies the Laughing Storm very well. It's just that Baratheons are supposed to be really tall and burly. So at first, my brain just went, what?
What is this short Baratheon?
Well, I mean, it's tough because even Dunk is supposed to be larger. Like, he's tall. He's like a little tall in this show, but in the book, he's like a big dude. Which, the thing is, you want good cast. You want actors who can act more than you care about their physicality. The thing about that scene in the tent that works really well, I think, is that it is very, very earnest because you have that stuff happen. They do their erotic slow-mo dance, and then they have a conversation afterwards in the kind of way that, like, once you've partied and are drinking, you kind of have weirdly intimate, discussions with somebody. Yeah. And the Laughing Storm is talking to Dunk about, like, I went out into the sea and I just want to do cool things, essentially, and, like, going out there. And Dunk tells him some of his insecurities and, like, what do I do? And then the Driving Storm goes, I don't know. Very drunk right now.
Yes.
But it's a really heartfelt moment of these taking these characters seriously and their issues seriously. And the thing is, again, that's something I feel like Game of Thrones never quite did. I feel like it never really quite liked its characters, or it was okay sitting in sentimentality, where this show is willing to be sentimental at times in a way that feels earned. And I just really appreciate that about that. I like how slow it is and how much we're allowed to be with the characters and feel their small ebbs and flows of what's going on.
And
And yeah,
let the emotions breathe. Like in this moment, Dunk is anxious. Like Baratheon is a trained, hardened knight and lord, and he says, "What chance do I have?" And
Mhm.
Baratheon's honest, like, not a fucking chance in hell, my guy.
yeah.
And then there's also the
Mhm.
financial weight where, because that Baratheon's like, listen, you lose a bout, it's fine, don't worry about it. And then Dunk has to remind him, I'm poor as shit. If I lose my horses and everything I own. And because he's coming and competing with everything he owns. And how it works is if you lose, the winner gets your shit. It's
Your
RP.
horse and your
Yeah.
armor and your arms.
Yeah, it's Knight's
And you
Tale
have
for
to
those of the
ransom
millennials.
them if you want to take them back. And since it's typically a Lord's game, everyone's like, yeah, fine, I'll ransom it back, or maybe he'll owe me a favor.
Or I'll raise taxes on the peasants
Yeah,
to
but
afford another
Dunk
one.
has literally,
Nothing.
he has bought a set of armor against the promise that he's going to pay after the journey, which he won't be able to do
Yep.
if he doesn't win.
And he's like, what are those places that you go to? You sell your stuff and you hope you can buy them
Like
back
pawn
later.
shop?
Yeah, he pawn shopped one of his horses.
Do you
whom-
see the economic differences between me and Maria? She barely even knew what we have to go through here. Oh, it's so tough.
Listen,
to
you.
handle.
I know what a pawn shop is. Mainly because my family in South Africa had connections with a pawn shop that was in the middle of a casino.
okay.
So that's the best place to get some real cool shit.
I was gonna say though, that's a good location.
That's a great location.
Uh,
But he basically pawn shops one of his horses, and it's so sad because this guy really fucking loves his horses. But this,
Yeah, and it's Sir Arlen's destrier as well. Like in the books, it is very specific with the fact that they have 3 horses. One is a destrier, one is a palfrey, and one is a nag. And Duncan rides the palfrey. And in terms of worth, the destrier is worth the most money. But the destrier was Sir Arlen's, and Dunk doesn't trust his horsemanship enough to be able to make the best use of this horse, and that is why he pawns this horse and rides his palfrey in the tourney.
oh, that's a nice touch.
that's a
Yeah, she was saying actually, because I was saying that Dunk sometimes comes off as a little bit bumbling, a little bit more than I would like. He comes off as real awkward, and I don't remember that in the short story I read. And then you were making the point, I think, about his thoughts.
Yeah, because if you have read the A Song of Ice and Fire things, you know that one thing that Martin's characters likes to do, a certain type of character is very active internally. They have a lot of thoughts, a lot of reflections that you only hear in the narration of the character. And Dunk is one of these people that he has a lot of internal narration that sort of builds up his character and sort of plays on this that he feels very lumbering and he feels very tall and awkward, and he is always hyper aware of the fact that he's lowborn and that he is suddenly surrounded by lords, and he doesn't quite always know the etiquette. And what the show has done is really clever in that they have taken some of that internal narration and they have turned it into interactions where he instead expresses these things, as in for example, he and Egg has this conversation where he's like, "Oh, I'm so small, so I'm small for my age," and Dunk is like, "Yeah, you'll grow. You know, people would always tell me I'm stupid," and that is one of his prevailing thoughts about himself that they sort of found a way to convert into something that is actually said in the show.
Well, what's funny too is you were telling me about one in the puppeteer's tent where Tansel says they call me Tansel Too Tall, this hot girl he knows, and he goes too tall for, and like he stutters off because it's like a sex thing.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because they a lot of times have Egg kind of catch his thoughts.
Yeah.
Like Egg like is like, oh, that was stupid.
Yeah.
Or like with the strong enough, and he's like, Egg is like, okay, but you need to finish the sentence.
Yeah.
Like, what did you do about people calling you dumb?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that is kind of an interesting thing. But I think it makes him come off a little bit more insecure. But again, the thing is, I'm not someone who's like, this has to be like the
You
books.
haven't read
I
the
think-
novel. Dunk is supposed to be insecure, especially in this first novel, because at this point he is essentially no one. He is a pig's boy who would have died in a ditch if his Sir Arlen hadn't picked him up and raised him. And Sir Arlen was a good master, but Sir Arlen was also very, very cautious to make Dunk always remember what he is and that he is nothing in this social hierarchy. So the thing with the Tansel Tutor interaction in the novels is actually that they talk like they do in the show, and she says, Tansel, boys call me Tansel too tall because she is tall. And internally, the Dunk just really latches onto this, and he says, Tansel too tall, but she ain't too tall for me. I was always called a stupid giant, sort of, but she is perfectly suited for me. And instead, and they clearly wanted to keep this little cute sort of attachment thing.
Yeah.
And so they made it into a joke in the show, which, depending on what your preferences are, you might like, or you might, if you will and hate anything whimsy, you'll be like, eh.
That's not what I was going to say. I was going to say that I think overall it makes him a little bit more bumbling than I would like. I would like if there were a few more moments of like him having a bit more, just a little less bumbling at times. That's always his reaction to everything. But I also don't think it's important to keep too much to the books. I think it's okay to build into your own thing.
Yeah.
And I think in a lot of ways this show is more comedic than the book, the short stories, and that's fine. I think that's good. Again, I'm not a purist in that way. If the changes made are smart, and I think it for the most part.
I'm gonna argue the Dunk I recall reading is rather bumbling.
Okay, well, we'll have to
read the actual thing to compare.
Yeah. We'll crossbow pistolas this later. Maybe we should have the three of us read it, right?
That you keep talking about the novels and the books, and you only read the third one.
Yeah, 1/3 in a scientific study.
But
that
the
would be valid.
Yeah, he read the last one, where Dunk is several years older and has already carved out a niche for himself.
This is what I said to him earlier.
No.
I literally said to him that he's starting from a place of insecurity. I actually love it because I know this is going to be his arc, that he goes from an insecure knight who is insecure about his position in society, his knowledge, the fact that he's untested against a lot of things, and he's going to walk out of this a confident bub. And by the end of it, he is going to be Sir Dunk, written about, like by the end of the whole thing, that was written about in the pages of whatever book it was that Joffrey was looking at with what's-his-face, and Dunk had 4 pages to himself. So like
that's
it's called
what the novels
growth.
Are. His graph.
If I could have a moment, I agreed, but I said I would have liked a few more hints of that eventual growth he's going to go to. And I think we can all agree that fundamentally the experience of going through
episodes.
Which is like 4 hours. I feel like that there's a fundamental difference between having internal thoughts that are insecure but presenting as a big brick wall to everyone else, and actually saying your insecure thoughts.
He keeps hitting his head and stuff in the novel as well.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just...
Which you would have known if you'd read it.
Okay.
Yikes.
But I feel like those two things are separate and different, but I don't mind that it's this one. I just wish it was a little less bumbling on
What do you think about the 4th episode? Because I find that he is much more confident. I mean, even his conversation when he goes to talk to Baelor.
We had that talk before I watched it.
Oh, yeah. Actually, you're right. Because I find him much more like confident, and not confident, but just less bumbly, if we're going to use that word. I don't love it because it has a bit of...
he's a little bumbly.
Negativity to it.
Yeah, he's bumbly.
But and so he really, I will say that there's a lot of room for growth, which I love in a main character. I don't like when we start out perfection. Katie and I just read a book that made me want to put my head through a wall because a character was flat and grew not at all. Look out!
You know what book we read that has a lot of character growth? Alchemized.
That's also a book with like 0 character growth. What are you talking about?
What do you mean? He murdered a bunch of people for her. That's character growth.
If I may, part of what makes this so charming and so different from a Game of Thrones and the House of the Dragon shows is that this is narrated through the eyes of a commoner, and a lot of the interactions we see are between common people. As opposed to between lords who are always playing, the two-faced game where everything is a hidden innuendo. So instead, we see a lot more earnestness. And in such way, I very much prefer to see Dunk as, I think he's 16 at this point, canonically.
Yes.
who really isn't much up in the world and really doesn't have anything to show for himself either. Like, he has literally nothing to be proud of. So I prefer that he is this way. And as we see slowly, he starts making friends. He gains Aegon's approval. Like, they build a relationship rather quickly. But we also see, like, Egg really begins to, respect Dunk for who he is in his values. The same goes with Baelor. Is it Baelor?
Yeah.
Balon?
The
Baelor, I think.
Crown
Baelor.
Prince Baelor.
The Crown Prince, who also takes a liking to Dunk because of the personality he shows, not necessarily for the accomplishments he has under his belt. And I think this is a very compelling. Like, it's a grassroots to a legendary figure, and that would not be as satisfactory if he comes in and he's like all cool and macho.
No, I agree. If someone had made that argument here, I would disagree with them. Again, I literally just mean like 2 scenes where you kind of get more of that steely, like, okay, I kind of know what I'm doing a little bit at times, especially towards the end of episode 3. It's like, it's been like 3 episodes now of him just being like, I'm not gonna be able to do this, guys. And like,
I guess for that I can see your point. I would say for me it played pretty well overall, but I can see wanting, you know what the problem is? So little actual knighting or any of the things that Dunk will be competent at, and so it is only till the end of episode 3 that we see that Dunk can actually beat someone up if need be. And so in the first 3 episodes, there's no Dunk picks up no swords. He's literally we're prepping.
We at this point don't know what he's capable of. Like, we've had like short little flashbacks, and judging by the fact that Sir Arlen is known and remembered by pretty much no one except the Prince Baelor. He could have been, not a very good master at arms. Like, he never won the tilts. He never won any tourneys. And that was the only one Dunk ever trained with, as opposed to these other lords who have had the finest weapons, the finest trainers, the finest tutors, and they have typically been honed to do this play war thing since they were old enough to stand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he makes that point, I think, to Lionel during the
scene that we were just
their like heart to heart. Yeah, it's kind of funny because if I'm remembering correctly, Dunk in the short stories mostly just wins because he's really large. Like, he's good, but like being really large is like very powerful. Is like a good advantage to have.
It's also part of this whole Martin's manifesto, or his statement that the best knight wasn't always the one who was best with swords or the one who was most accomplished at arms. Like, there is so much randomness in fate and in life.
The best knight.
Yeah, this most skilled knight can lose against a very inferior foe.
What makes the best knight? The one who will stand up for the weak and the innocent, and that is a true knight. Martin actually does. That is like the thing Martin is most interested in. Is is like, if it's hopeless, okay, you're a real knight for standing up. You're a real one, like Brienne at in Feast for Crows. But yeah, so getting back to the episode, I don't know that we need to do a full plot synopsis of it.
I mean, that's basically it. It ends after the party, and he kind of needs to like figure out what he's going to do after that. And the point is, like, a lot of stuff does happen in the episode, but somebody literally summarized it as his dad dies, he takes a poop, he walks around, talks to people, and then he goes to a party and dances. And I just found that such a disingenuous description.
That's such bullshit.
And it misses all of these tiny little moments of nuance that we've just discussed. The interplay, like the relationship between him, like the difference in standing between him and Lionel, the interactions with Egg, the interactions with the master of the games. Like, there's so many tiny interactions that have so much layers and meaning to them, and it's just such a disingenuous take on the episode. It made me angry.
So no, it's such bullshit, and that's because also this show understands how to take advantage of its medium in a way that Game of Thrones never did, and even House of the Dragon, I feel like, doesn't quite take advantage of it as much. This show understands how editing works. And that's something that, like, it knows how to cut things for comedy or for emphasis. Obviously, there's the one where he's like, Arlen, he never hit me more than he could. And then we get a series of flashbacks getting hit by Arlen. Or, like, they're always intercutting to something else. At one point, one guy doesn't have an eye, and Egg is like, why don't you have an eye? And we get to cut back to him getting a lance in the eye, and then him charging with his eyeball out. Like, it understands how to do that, and part of it is that because it feels more able to just be a comedic series, where the comedy is more up than like Game of Thrones, where like it kind of has to keep a consistent tone between all these other plot lines it's juggling. And so it's able to do that, but I think it also just, it really helps tell the story, because saying like people moved from room to room, from different people talked in different rooms, is basically all of fiction. But the things that make it good, especially in visual media, are like, how was it shot? Do we see how big Dunk is compared to everybody else? You know, all these small things that come into it. And this show, I feel like, has a much better... Again, I don't know if maybe they just have a better sense of what tone they're going for, so they're able to cut like that. I think they're also less scared to be TV-ish. I think Game of Thrones was very much a, like... I don't know... I remember something they said where they never wanted to do flashbacks. They had said in an interview once. And it's like, well, but that's kind of an important thing at times. Like, this show uses flashbacks, but it uses them very well and to tell the story.
Yeah, I'd like to argue that there is even a little hint of...
Do up.
No, the guy... The Kill Bill.
Oh, Tarantino, yes.
Tarantino, yes.
Or Edgar Wright as well.
Just a tiny little flair of it every now and then.
Him and Edgar Wright are the ones who most often use cutting for comedy or for emphasis. And yeah, it really works here where it works. Again, Arlen, we don't really know that well except through these flashbacks about like what's going on with him. Or the opening of episode 2, which is basically him telling the story of Arlen, and you don't see Arlen talk, but he's just, you're seeing, like, it's both funny because yes, Arlen has an enormous penis, but it's also
enormous.
Just hanging out.
like this is what in Court of Thorn and Roses they were talking about, like Sir Arlen. Anyway, continue, Will. Sorry.
But and so it's funny, but also cutting between him and Dunk riding around and singing is like, it's really heartfelt through this progression of shots, even though they're not necessarily talking. Well, there is a voiceover, but the progression of the shots really add to the feeling of like, oh, it's sad when he died, and Dunk misses him, even as he is kind of an insane caricature from what we've seen from the show.
It really is. And I think the other thing that you kind of hit on is, I think because Game of Thrones had so many plot lines, and also because it was kind of the first time a lot of money was being sunk into a fantasy story.
Oh my God, it had so many more sex scenes. It's so weird to think back to the Game of Thrones one and how many random sex scenes there were.
Because they were like, we have to hit on what makes people do the historical fiction shows, which at the time were like the sexy sex scenes and all that shit. And so like...
Also, we're HBO, we can do this where cable can't.
And so I think they had to court that more serious, grimmer feeling, because in trying to differentiate themselves from the other fantasy that was out there. Because like by this point, Lord of the Rings... like by the time Game of Thrones came out, masterpiece of cinema and the whole thing, but it has a very different tone than what Game of Thrones was going for. And I think at this point, Westeros is such a established part of the canon in fantasy within TV. Like, it is just so established that you get to then play in the sandbox. And it actually reminds me of a really great interview that Martin had recently, talking about how this is the version of Westeros he wants to write. Like he's tired of of A Song of Ice and Fire and the trappings of that story.
Well, bitch, maybe you should finish the story first. Go ahead.
Let's not go into that.
Yeah. But like, this is the type of story. Like, he loves the world. He doesn't want to leave Westeros, but this type of story, the small scale, interpersonal, more slice of life, is where he wants to be. And that it's the first time he's been really happy at like an HBO show, because they're like, he's like, I do want to write more of this. Okay.
Yeah. It's so funny because in part, that is where he shines, to me.
I think that if he wanted to write different things, he maybe should have finished the first thing he wrote instead of adding 900 iron.
You mean?
No, 109 Iron Islands plot lines. I think
Okay.
maybe if that's what you
Yeah,
want to write,
yeah.
you don't add a whole Dornish continent to the story.
Yes, we can stop beating this dead horse now.
Ah.
It's been 20 years.
Yeah, unfortunately it
It
has.
has been.
Obama was president when the last book came out.
Ah,
Anyway,
But connecting-
you were saying something about how this before I interrupted you
Yes.
about the sex thing.
So it connects to the ability to be able to be earnest and silly within, and in a way that I've made the argument before that you can use humor to up emotionality and the way we connect with characters, where the humor kind of disarms you and you laugh and you kind of relate to the character and the setting, and then that allows you to kind of slip into the emotions with the character in a way that when you're trying to be too serious doesn't always work. Like one of the problems I had with Game of Thrones sometimes was despite, and again, we'll say because it was a bad TV show, but I think obviously plenty of other people didn't have this, but I find myself getting more emotionally choked up in a lot of scenes that have happened in the 4 episodes of this show because everything was just so grim and shitty happening in Game of Thrones that when something really extra shitty happened, it wasn't enough of a vibe. I wasn't able to the Red Wedding happened and I was like, oh my God, that was so violent. But like, I wasn't like gutted, where
Mhm.
Well, I will argue that was partly because the show disliked sentimentality because
Yes.
the authors are toxically
Yeah, and
masculine.
if you read the
essentially.
books, it's a lot more like a symphony. It's much more.
Yes.
There's a lull, there's the verse, there's a build up, and then there's like a big event like that,
Yeah.
and then there's a lull, and then there's new
Well-
build up. Whereas in the show, especially with how much tighter they were making a lot of the storylines, you had way less downtime between these big, really dramatic things.
But I agree with what you're saying too about the need for both the funny and the not funny. One of the most brutally funny shows I've ever watched is Mad Men. Mad Men is so funny at times, but it's because you don't quite expect it to be at times, and this is almost the other way around, where it's funny and then it hits you with the heart.
Yeah.
And I think that really helps.
And it really just makes those moments for me, like the serious moments, more. And because I'm through humor, our suspension of disbelief is lower. Comedy gets away with a lot by virtue of being funny, and so the humor takes your claws out. Like you're not you're not
Mhm.
ready to judge. You don't have to. The suspension of disbelief doesn't need to be as high because of the comedy. And then once you lower your guard because of the comedy, they're able to come in and sucker punch you with the emotions. And I think you're both right as far as how Game of Thrones, the TV show, was unable to hit for me those emotional highs. But also I think you're right, the showrunners made the conscious choice. But I think on top of potentially toxic masculinity things, as you mentioned, but also because I think that was the tone they thought they had to take to make a successful TV series that a bunch of people would
Yeah.
connect with. And
And for its time, arguably, it worked.
it did. It
Well-
really did.
Yeah. Regardless of how it ended, like at the
Guys.
time, they made fantasy mainstream, and no other show had managed to do that before. So
And this show gets to exist because of that. Like this gets to
Guys,
play in the sandbox
No,
because of that.
no. We are not giving Game of Thrones any credit for that shit. No, okay? Just because, the Washington Monument was built upon a sewer does not mean we're like, oh, it's good people used the sewer. No. Comment, like, subscribe, leave reviews of our podcast if you would like the 105-part series where I dunk on a Game of Thrones after each episode and hate watch it. Okay, back to you, Maria. But no, I think it's true. There's a tonality here that really helps, and it also helps that it's actually genuinely funny. Dunk is a good Egg is a good actor, which you don't always get with kid actors,
Yep.
and him and Dunk are
Oh,
so
yeah.
funny together.
he is
like their
so
specific
good.
dynamic.
His tone is so perfect for whatever situation they're in. He has that naivete, but also that slightly princely up-nosedness at times. Like he's a little pointed.
There's a way he says like, "Oh, I don't want to talk about being on the back of the lamb cart." That's just so funny because it's one of the ways that like he's not always the one above Dunk. Dunk sometimes does get in under where into his blind spots of how he sees the world, and like that's funny too. And so like it's just it is really sweet, and I was just like I really liked those parts of those episodes, and you really need it to work.
Yeah, they are the heart of it. And if they don't, like, the casting was just incredible. I don't know how long it took them to figure out those two as the combo, but like that is the magic. There's in episode 2, there's that scene we referenced earlier where they have the Dunk interacts with the puppeteer lady, and Egg he's like, was that well done with the puppeteer? And Dunk or Egg is like, nah, bro, maybe less awkwardness next time. And it's just because like there's very quickly this bond between them where like they kind of come to respect each other, because like there's a bit of a push and pull where like there's this point where Dunk's like, you know, go do this, and then Eggs pushes back, and then Dunk like kind of softens, and there's this like back and forth between how they interact. And even a moment where he's like, if you're hungry, eat this dry ass meat, and Eggs like, God damn it. And then Dunk makes him an egg sandwich, which you know that because like you very quickly learn at the end of episode 1 and into episode 2 that Egg is the missing Targaryen prince. That the two of I forgot what his name is, but one of the Targaryen.
Darian.
No, Arian is the Darian.
Darian with the D.
So there's Baelor, who's the crown prince, and then there's Darian, and Darian, 2 of his sons are missing, and you're like, I remember the blonde guy from the beginning, and you very quickly, like, I guessed it immediately.
Wait. Yeah, I meant Darian was the other son who.
Yeah,
no.
it's Maekar.
Maekar, that's who I was thinking of.
There's Crown Prince.
Baelor.
We like him. He's good.
Baelor.
There's
Maekar,
bad dude. Shitty dad. He has shittier son who is of the Targaryen psychopath line.
Aerion Bright Flame.
Drunkard. And then we have Egg, precious boy.
Yes.
As Maria would say.
And
the drunkard is Darren, not Darian.
Yeah, Darren. And you very quickly realize, oh, Egg is the missing Targaryen. Boy shaved his head, and I picked it up immediately. I was like, the only reason a boy is bald, and we saw Targaryen inside, that kid is a fucking Targaryen. I'd bet my fucking life on it. And so immediately I was like, hey, I fucking called that. But if you
I texted you when we'd finished watching. I was like, okay, so when did you figure out who it was? Mm-hmm. And you said immediately. And I was like,
I saw a Targaryen prince inside, and then there was this boy in the stables bald, and I was like, there's only one reason that kid is rocking around bald. That's a weird ass look with that head, with that skull. Like it's because we're hiding some white hair. And so you have this, by the start of episode 2 that there is a disparity between the classes of these two characters, and watching them bump against each other and become fond. There's a point where they're watching like the tourney happening, and they're like, yeah, and just like so pumped together. But like the moments as they're like interacting and walking around just work really well and are the heart of the show. I think one of the highlights for me, and I told this to Will, and it literally lives rent-free in my mind, the start of episode 3 is one of the greatest things I've ever seen ever. It is
so pure.
They've gone to sleep the night before, and Egg wakes up the next morning, and he's like, I've got to help my master. And he takes the horse that Dunk is going to ride into battle. Also, Dunk changes his name to Duncan because he realizes Dunk is a weird name because of Egg. He's like, yeah, Dunk. And then Egg's like, short for Duncan? And he's like, yeah, short for
totally.
Duncan. But Egg takes the horse that he's going to ride,
and he's talking to the horse the whole time, and he's like, "Okay, you go ahead."
He's like, "You got to get ready to ride him. You know, like you got to make sure." And he's like, "A lot of people like to hit horses. I think horses just want to be spoken to and respected." And he's having this. There's a training montage with Egg and the horse where he teaches the horse to like ride at a signal, and then as the horse is just running past, he's just lifting Dunk's sword into the air, being like, Sir Duncan, take your sword. And he's like, he's so practicing being a squire by himself in the middle of a field. And I fucking died inside. I literally was like, I never knew I needed this in my... The show is earnest. It is so genuine in its sentimentality, in the emotions of its characters, in the characters feeling seriously. There is moments of irony and like tongue-in-cheekness, but not at the expense of our two main characters.
Yeah.
Their feelings and emotions. I mean, listen, when they take the piss out of each other, that's different. And even then, I would say they both respect each other's emotions. Guys.
That scene is also gorgeous for the cinematography of the swooping camera. This is a thing that is such a moment you would not normally spend that amount of budget on, especially in Game of Thrones. But like, it really sells the moment because it's in his head. You can see him being like, "I'm gonna help Dunk.
Yeah,
we're gonna get there." And no, it's so pure. It was really great. And there's a
Oh no, finish.
No, I was gonna say, and then there's a part later where he talks to Dunk, and they're just sitting around hanging out, and he's like, "Afterwards, I'd like to settle down and then marry the Lord's second most beautiful daughter." And Dunk's like, "Why second most?" And he's like, "Because you got the most beautiful." And that's when Dunk is like, "Oh, you can be my squire."
And you're literally like, "I want these two to be together forever and be happy,
which they
forever."
Well, not that part. But...
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, so there's a lot of moments like that are just very beautiful and again, there's scenes we never would have gotten in a different TV show because we don't have time to let a little boy run around with a horse.
No, I mean, the problem is that this series, and I will say, okay, because if it's only 6 more episodes, it's probably hold true. This would either be cut down into one character's A plot in a Game of Thrones, like a third of the episode would be this entire season, or this would be spread out through an entire 12 episode season into scenes throughout. And that would actually work better because Game of Thrones sometimes couldn't do that well. But like having it be slow, but slow in a way that doesn't waste your time or is a little bit more concentrated, I think really works. And again, it's just fun to be with these characters. It's fun for them to sit and talk about Three-Fingered Alice, who we've teased up to this point, but we won't talk about her profession. It's fun at the aftermath of him trying to flirt with Tanzel and that not going well. It's just, there's a lot of moments of them just hanging out that are a ton of fun. I do think, I mean, technically speaking, you could add in a little bit more plot happening at times and it wouldn't hurt. I recently watched Markiplier's film Iron Lung, which is a recent horror movie that came out from a YouTuber, and it wasn't made through the studio system. He just financed and made it himself. And one of the things that was really interesting about it is the movie is not great at times, but it is great at other times. It felt a lot like watching a foreign film in that it didn't feel like other films, but at the same time, there was still an intentionality in what it was doing and an earnestness and a real skill. Like, the shots were very beautiful, but they weren't necessarily the ones you would expect from a film. And this almost feels like that a little bit in that you could maybe make it a little stronger by tightening the screws of the script writing a little bit and making it a little more conventional. But there's something really... There's a verve that comes from earnest creativity that's been unedited that you can't really get another way. You can't get it if it's more polished. And I kind of like that this is unpolished. And like you said, the scope is small. And so it might technically be functional. The structure would function a little better if it was a little bit enlarged. But like, this gives you what you want. It's almost a little fanficky in that way. And like, this really gives you what you want.
It does. It definitely feels like the best part of fan fiction when you're looking for like that slice of like the characters where it has and it also fits the term cozy that I've discussed before, where when I think of cozy books or cozy fiction, it does not mean devoid of tension. It just means small scale tension between people and situations. And listen, this definitely goes about outside of that. At the end of episode 3, Dunk, at Egg's behest, goes to save a girl who's the puppeteer Tanzel that we mentioned before, who is being tortured by Aerion Targaryen, who is an asshole. Because she dared to be part of a play that I guarantee you this bitch did not write, where a dragon loses. And this is how many years after the end of the death of the last dragon? I think it's like 100 or something.
Let's see. The last one died. I think it's about 40 years.
Yeah. So it hasn't.
So, go ahead.
It hasn't been. It's enough time that like it's their potential. Like it's still close enough that the Targaryens are real butthurt about it. So seeing a dragon die, and this guy's also just a psychopath. Like he's got that strain of Targaryen shittiness.
Mhm.
He's got the egg. Oh, what was the guy in the first?
If you've read the books,
Yeah.
Aerion Brightfire or Bright Flame is the source of one of the best jokes in the entire epic that is A Song of Ice and Fire, which is when the old Bear Mormont, who is the knight commander at the wall, talks to Tyrion one night, and he says that the Targaryens have always danced really close to madness. There's a saying that whenever a Targaryen is born, the gods flip a coin. And one of the anecdotes he comes up with is there was Aerion Bright Flame. He thought he was a dragon trapped in human form, and one night he drank wildfire and thought it would transform him into a dragon. But the gods were good, then they turned him into a corpse instead.
Yeah, there's Martin. It's actually funny. There's one part where when you first meet the Fossleways, they make this joke about apples, and I'm like, that is straight from the novels because Martin loves his symbolism puns.
Yeah, it's a shame because Darion is like, I'm the dragon, and then Daron says like, oh, it's a shame he wasn't born a Fossilway because then he would have thought he was an apple.
And we would have all been
I
much
was like-
safer for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so, God, it's so funny.
It's actually interesting you say that too about all the stuff because there's a big thing that happens between House of the Dragon, the Dance of the Dragons, the Dying of the Dragons, and this one politically that like is going to actually become a very large part of the books, but is not been brought up at all so far. I mean, Egg has like one song about it, but you have to really be a book nerd to know.
Yeah, and the night after the tourney too, when he sword fights his phantom, when Duncan is lying and contemplating, he's like, Daemon, die.
Yeah, the Targaryens had another civil war that like shook the entire continent and was real bad, and like the people who were rebels are still hanging out across the narrow sea. There's a whole political context that the show hasn't gone into, which I think is actually fine. Like they can talk about it as it becomes necessary.
Yeah,
and also
I think they will get there.
I think it works because if we're being told this from the point of view of a commoner or a normal person, a lot of times they had no fucking clue what was happening. Now, in this case, Dunk would have a bit more because by being like the squire of a knight. But even then, how much is he like getting?
It's less relevant because this is the first time he's even hanging out around princes.
Any of these guys who are like an actual like not just working for a lord in an event, but and so how much it impacts his life is fucking nothing right now. But as he becomes
one of the big things about the short stories, or I think this maybe is more explicit in the second and third one, is like how bad that civil war was for people. There's a sickness. There was a big sickness that killed people. There was a famine, I think, and so people are like, the Targaryens are no good right now, guys.
Yeah.
They
and you do get some of that sentiment where there's a lot of points where people talk shit about the Targaryens in a really like open way, and you know that something is like they fucked up somewhere, and so I would say that's how it's become injected, where everyone's just kind of pissed off at the Targaryens. And watching it, I was like, wow, what have these fuckers been up to that everyone is like, and not afraid to like say it to other people, you know?
You're right. This is kind of a midway point between where we started with House of the Dragon, where they're in power, and then in Game of Thrones, they're going to be gone.
Yeah.
And nobody misses them.
And we're also in that middle way where people are like, their dragons are gone now.
Yeah.
Why do we need these fuckers who just fight internally and make life shit for the rest of us?
And it really, that for me came through where I was like, and now that you say that this big thing just happened, I'm like, oh, that makes sense why this everybody's kind of talking shit behind the Targaryens' back, and also makes Baelor's actions much more, because one of the things that's going to happen is, like I mentioned, Dunk is going to save the puppeteer when Aerion is torturing her, and by doing that is going to fight Aerion and punch him and kick him in the face. which, you know, not great. Aerion immediately, his guards come in and they're gonna like fuck up Dunk. And of course, our boy Egg has to bust in and be like, no, guard I know by name, other guard I know by name, stop or I'll tell my father. And you're like, ugh. And again, I knew, but I loved everybody else's reaction. And Dunk looks back at him and been like, you're a fucking target. You're like, the fuck? Like, it's such a beautiful moment of like confusion and like some hurt on Dunk's face in the scene. But
and the music and the camera shot in that very scene felt so Tarantino to me.
Yeah.
You're so right. The Tarantino call is incredible with how it works in this. Excellent eye. But what happens with this is we begin to have a split between the Targaryens with how they're going to handle this hedge knight beating a prince. And we've already seen that Baelor, because Baelor is the only person that remembers Sir Arlen, and they actually tilted against each other. They actually competed.
Oh, it was so nice. Okay, because the buildup is in episode 2, Dunk starts the episode trying to talking to all these big lords about Arlen, fighting for them, and none of them remember him. It's very depressing, and then he meets the Targaryens, and Baelor remembers Arlen, and you're like, oh, it's such a heartwarming moment too, of like, oh, he remembered the old man.
Yeah,
and this is how you know he's a good guy.
Crown prince,
yeah,
who thought it worth taking the time to remember people that far beneath him.
And you also get that Arlen maybe lied about how many lances it took to unseat him.
Yeah, which is hysterical, but it's still impressive. Like it was an impressive story, and Arlen embellished it, which just gives you an idea of who he is.
Yeah, it's very human.
Like he maybe embellished the size of his member.
Well,
I think we saw that firsthand, unfortunately.
Also, Dunk definitely
but it was a flashback.
Dunk definitely saw that member too. I'm sure that guy was faced like he was.
Oh,
he was young.
There's such a good moment. Sorry, I was just remembering that flashback where the two of them are under a tree and it's getting rained on, and Dunk is cutting something and giving him food, and it's just such a great like little way of showing the intimacy these two people had as living companions. And it's it's right after we see his enormous penis, so it's like it's both we played for comedy, but then we get the kind of realness of it, and it's just shown through the shot. And like that's one of the ways that the show has all these little things that it does very well.
And you're right, it does. The comedy of it disarms you, and then you're hit with this very like intimate scene between the two of them. It kind of reminded me at the beginning of Sinners, where the Smokestack twins are, the one is rolling the cigarette, the other one is lighting it, and there's this whole like flawless interplay. It's like that moment, but like undercut by the penis that was there beforehand.
Well, not undercut hugely.
Not undercut hugely,
but
undercut on purpose, where like the humor is there for a reason. But yeah.
Well, life is funny too, so it works as the thing.
Yes. And Baelor is like genuinely listens to Dunk and takes him seriously, and there's very much this like, oh, you're a decent guy, Baelor. But then so at the start of episode 4, they're like, what the fuck do we do? Aerion is like, he attacked me. And then, what's the other brother's name? Darren? Darren?
Yes.
Darren, because he lost his younger brother, was like, a rogue stole him in the night. And now everybody's like, the rogue is Dunk. And so it puts the Targaryens were like, how are we going to deal with this? And Baelor's like, yo, Dunk, ask for a trial by combat. How good are you with the sword, my guy? And Dunk's like, okay. I'll ask for a trial by combat. And Aerion, who's already had his shit rocked by Dunk, is like, no. Rule of 7, baby, which is I get 7 guys, you get 7 guys, and whichever side wins when we clash together on an open field is correct. Let me tell you, trial by combat is the dumbest way to deal with disputes ever.
It's one of those things that I don't like Martin puts in that's just historically would not work if that was how it actually worked. Yes, no, it makes no real sense.
No, like
the system of governance.
That's a weird, but anyway, it has this like archaic, because a trial by 7 hasn't been done in hundreds of years. It's super archaic, and everybody's like, yo, are you a little bitch that you can't just face this guy? You need other people on the field because you're afraid of facing this guy.
It's true.
But what it does is it sets it up as a Targaryens versus this guy issue. And everyone else is siding with the guy who defended the innocent. And the reason I bring this up is because it makes, given all the political stuff that we don't know that happened, but the bad standing of the Targaryen name, our boy Baelor, crown prince of the realm, has to think like a politician. Number one, I think he likes Dunk. I'll say that. But I also think he's fucking smart, because what ends up happening is Baelor at the end of the episode, and it's a great like buildup of a moment, because Dunk is down a man because this dude betrayed his trust. It's set up so that like if the Targaryens lose, it looks like they're shitty, but also you don't want them to win because everybody is on Dunk's side. Because again, we've already seen a lot of characters talk about their problems with the Targaryens, the fact that, you know, they're a knight. Dunk was defending the innocent. That's literally in the vows of knighthood. And Baelor, like, it's this beautiful scene of Dunk's down a guy, and if he does not get a seventh guy, he's just going to lose. And so he appeals to the crowds of lords to be like, is there, and it's this impassioned scene. And then Baelor rocks up like, fuck it, I will fight for Sir Duncan. And on one hand, you're like, yeah, that's the right side. But on the other hand, from a political standpoint, incredibly smart move, because now it's no longer Targaryens versus other people. We've even that playing field. It's those assholes versus these guys. By putting a Targaryen on
and
each
also
side,
Baelor is the crown prince, so he needs people's goodwill.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think, see, I read it a little differently in terms of more of the honor, more of the knighthood kind of perspective of like, he knows it's not a great idea for him to be doing this, but like, look, Dunk needs a guy. Like, it's unfair for him to stand alone on the field or to forfeit without fighting.
Yep.
But I think you're probably correct. It's probably more that one.
But I think it's both. I think Baelor is a good guy, and he also knows that making this a Targaryen versus them thing is bad for, like, optics. I think you can do both, where you can do the thing that you think is right, but also realize that because you remove it's Targaryens versus the people who did the right thing by putting a Targaryen on the side that wants to do the right thing. Playing field even. Yeah. It's no longer like the royal.
Well, actually, two Targaryens, because the Darien brother who's drunk is also on Dunk's side.
No, he's on the other
side.
I
thought he's on Arion's side, and he said, "I'm gonna ride, but if you would like to tilt me off my horse, I won't fight you."
Just give me.
I thought he was saying,
"I have to fight on."
I thought he was saying, "I'll be on your side," but then just immediately pretend.
No. He was saying, "I have to ride against you because I'm one of the people that made a complaint against you, but just." Like, I won't be a problem. Knock me out, and I will just pretend to be asleep on the floor.
Yeah. No, okay, fair enough. Yeah, I misheard that.
Yeah. And the nice little tidbit is that the guy who broke his lance against Arion the day before, who Arion killed his horse by stabbing the lance through the horse's neck, and the horse fell on the guy's leg, so he broke his leg. He shows up to fight for Dunk, and Dunk is like, "Don't you have a broken leg?" He's like, "Yeah, but once I'm up here, once I'm on my horse, I can do my thing."
He's like, as long as I
just wanting a rematch against fucking Arion.
Again, I would have liked, I think, that episode to be a little bit more of a, we're getting Seventh Samurai style, we got to find the people for the heist. I think you could have done some interesting explorations of knighthood and what it means to people as he tries to convince all these different people. Yeah. But again...
Well, you mean they would have actually shown
the different interactions?
Goes around and convinces people
to
fight?
Egg, or maybe Dunk goes to a knight and because it doesn't work.
That would be acanonical. Canonically, Egg is the one who gets the gang together, but I'm sure we could have shown Egg do it.
Yeah.
Egg do it, or we even see him, we see Dunk go to someone and try, or someone that he met earlier in the series.
Yeah.
In the, like you can change the form of it. I think that would be kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe another hedge knight who's like, dude, we're bros, but I'm not going to die for you.
No, absolutely
like, this is crazy. I won my battle already. I got kids.
They wanted to set it up because the novel is very set up from Dunk's point of view, where it just gets more and more hopeless, and it really seems like the novel's gonna end terribly. Like, Dunk is probably, maybe he's gonna be pardoned but forced into prison or something. Like, it seems really dark for him, and this is a big turnaround moment. Because first he thinks he is beat because even though the Fossaway says he's going to ask some of his friends, like Dunk, he's like, why would they fight for me? I'm nobody.
Yeah.
So already then he's downtrodden, but he has some hope. and then the Fossaway, I can't remember the name of, betrays him and fights for Arian. And at that point, you really think that, oh, this is it. Like, it's fucked.
You know what it is? I think it's what the series does, and when I meant fleshing it out more, I think it's often okay. So in stories, you have like character has a goal they're going to set out, or this plot line starts and then it ends, and you have to in a story you have to have like 3 things happen before you can get to that point. So if he's like, okay, we're going to go steal that cart, it has to go wrong, and then it happens. And in this series, a lot of times they do the thing, and then it kind of happens next, and that's fine. It's not destroying tension. There's other tension going on. There's other plot lines, but like sometimes I think the series could have another complication before we get to the point that it was working through. So like trying to find a knight, and then all of a sudden the knight being like, "No, I don't want to go with you." For example, is just like another step on the way.
No, and
I think that maybe is what it is.
And I think you're right that could happen, but I also, for me, I really loved the scene because what Dunk ends up doing that night is having a scene with
Steely Pete,
the blacksmith, and it is
Steely
this
Pete.
great scene. Number one, between 2 commoners, and who the blacksmith is thankful for what he did for Tanzel, the puppeteer, but also what Dunk kind of represents amongst this tourney of lords and shitty knights, and charging him only a copper. And I really, again, it's one of those moments where the small slice of life thing comes at the expense of what could have given an extra step to the plot, where I think you're right that
it was my favorite scene in the whole episode.
I think you could have kept it. I don't necessarily think it's but what I love that scene. It's a great scene. I also love the part where he's like, it's dying and the star is falling and the elm is dead, and he's like, no, it's green. That's the color of summer. And it's like, it's such a commoner thing to be like, that's what, that's how you know what they are.
Yeah,
so it's a great moment. Again, it's series really has a ton of heart.
Yeah. And the other scene that's excellent at the end is Raymond, getting knighted, where his cousin forsakes them and goes to fight with the other side, and he's like, oh crap, we need another person, and he's like, knight me, I'll fucking do it. And you can tell our boy Dunk is like, what do I do? And then ends up getting called away, and freaking Lionel Baratheon does this beautiful knighting, and it's kind of slow-mo overplaying like a couple different shots,
Vows of a Knight,
and it's just so good and so heartfelt, because this kid is like, I'm gonna do it, I've only been a squire, but I'm going to fucking get up on a horse and ride into this battle because I believe in Dunk, and because my cousin...
Yeah, and he's my buddy.
And my cousin forsook him, and it's just such a shitty thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was a dishonorable thing to do for the Fossaways.
It was...
See, I kind of wish... I almost wish the brother, the
cousin,
the Red Apple Fossaway...
The cousin.
The cousin had actually been on Dunk's side, and it was just like, fuck the Targaryens, I don't give a shit. But I understand
it's a funny backstory for why the Fossaway clans are split into the Green Apple and the Red Apple Fossaways, and how the Red Apple Fossaways are the senior branch and thus always thinks they're more important. So this was like the underdog's kind of comeback moment where he's like, I'm gonna fight if my cousin won't.
I would have liked it if he had been betrayed, if that had been the move of like another poor knight he knew, and he was just like, dude, yeah, you're right here, but this is the only way I'm ever gonna get a lordship. The realities of the situation. But I mean, again, it's not a big thing. I think it's just the show has a lot of interest in like the basic necessities of life and money, which I find very relatable. Which really help ground it and make the interactions about more than just like honor or not honor. There are material considerations to take into account. And so this is one of those places where I feel like that could have been like pushed a little, but it's also, again, it's fine.
Yeah.
So what do you think is going to happen next? Because we end it with Baelor writing in being like, I'll be your 7th. Let's do this.
I think they're going to fucking trounce the others. I think someone on the other side's going to die. I know who my vote is. And again, this whole series, the whole time, every time Dunk saw Arian, he was like, kill him, because he's an asshole. He's a really shitty dude.
Kill the cat.
And I think Dunk is going to win the tourney, and I hope he gets his horse back. That's what I want to happen, and that's what I'm pulling for. I don't know if that's what's
I said
gonna
what
happen.
you thought. Yeah, I was going to say what do you think is going to happen.
I think his team is gonna win. Like I think Dunk obviously he still has like more pages to write in his story, and I don't think it involves going to prison and or dying because of the situation. So I think he's winning. And I honestly, what I'm just so interested in is how does House Targaryen end up being okay with Egg being his squire into the future? Because like if in this situation, okay, weird situation, we got it, but obviously something has to come out of this tourney that they're like, okay, we'll let him be your squire.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember because I didn't read that story. I only ever read the synopsis of it, so we'll see. Ellen is the only one who knows the truth.
Of course you don't remember something you never read.
That's what I just said. I said I didn't read it. I just read the summary of it. Yeah, okay. Thank you all for joining us. That was pretty cool. Oh, did you guys want to talk about anything else?
No, I think that was pretty good. Thank you for talking about this with me, guys.
The armor is so much better in this show than all the other iterations, especially Game of Thrones. The armor is really gorgeous, except for
the Kingsguard. Their armor looks terrible.
I hate it. Also, the Targaryens' helmets, always shit.
Yeah. They're a little bit better here because they're a little less visible. And the Targaryen armor in general, going with the early modern fluting, I forget what it's called. Very nice choice. Even the colored armor looks like it could have been from that time period, which is quite nice. Which has not always been the case. But
yeah, the Kingsguard looks.
The Kingsguard armor is Tron.
But also, it looks like something you would see out of Baldur's Gate.
To me, to me it looked weirdly lacy almost.
Yeah.
Like they're wearing a napkin-shaped armor.
I did not like it.
No.
No, it was pretty bad.
Oh, I actually have a point of contention. That is, I don't know if this is me fighting against the canon or if this is just another one of those things where, for example, they made a new Lord of the Rings series and suddenly all the elves have like modern cuts and short hair. Aerion, why is his hair like that?
Why is his hair like that?
Hair.
Why does he have fuckboy hair? Yeah.
Yeah, at this time, it's a sign of nobility to have long hair. Almost everyone else has
and
at least slightly longer.
Baylor as well also has short hair. His brother, Maker, has that weird, like, split thing, but even that is longer than the other two. Those two are, like, I don't know.
It makes sense for commoners to have, like, because it's easy to maintain and easier to keep clean and everything, but these are, like, the height of royalty.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where they're translating the modern into that time period, which the show is mostly good at, but right there it is very funny to think of him and be like, he does have really
the actor is a good Aerion, but because of this stylistic choice, there is something about it that comes up slightly false to me.
We'll do one either next Tuesday or we'll do one or just honestly we could just do the end of the series 1 in 2 weeks if we wanted to, just depending on how we feel. Did you guys enjoy this? There's still going to be another episode coming out this week. I was going to make this the one episode. I decided while I was doing this, but then remembered that Val wants the last Witcher episode to come out on her birthday. And I have trouble saying no to Val.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you all for joining us. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you all. If you like this, comment, subscribe.
Join our Patreon. Woo!
All right. Bye, people.
Bye.
Bye.